Let's speak more about the budget with National Economic Development and Labour Council Community Constituencies. Thulani Tshefuta, very good evening to you, Mr. Tshefuta. Grateful for your time. Minister Godongwana said this in concluding his speech today, that it was not an austerity budget, but a budget that makes tough trade-offs in the interests of the country's short and long-term prosperity. Has he struck that right balance?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to you and the viewers. We believe that the budgeting exercise on its own is a balancing exercise. We can definitely say that there are aspects that have come through for the benefit of the people, and we also have missed opportunities in the very same budget. And if we take and view the budget as just the financialization of the priorities and the commitments that were expressed by the President in the State of the Nation address, we will begin to see that there are consistencies between what the President would have announced and prioritized and the budget, albeit glaring omissions and gaps that have been left by the Minister of Finance.
And what are those glaring gaps, the missed opportunities, as you called them earlier?
The first of those is to have a bold statement about any moves towards debt, to say it is not necessarily a bad thing, but when you go out and get more debt, it must not be to finance consumption-based items, but it must be for investments. The second missed opportunity is that when you talk about energy supply and consistency thereof and the incentives that are being introduced, they must benefit even the poorest of the poor. The people who can afford to put rooftop solars on their houses and businesses are big business, and even those who are well-to-do. And those that are still struck by energy poverty will not have the opportunity and the benefit of putting rooftop solars on their houses. And so they still perpetuate the poverty of energy. But what we have consistently proposed is that to government is actually that the rooftop solars and other renewable methods of energy must be viewed as part of the urgent service delivery measures. In a case where, in the same way you would provide refuse removal, you would provide water, you would provide electricity, you must then roll out a mass program of rooftop solars to provide for the poorest of the poor. And those are some of the glaring gaps, including, by the way, a missed opportunity of taking about a whopping 1 billion rand to SAA. There is no poor person who uses SAA. Anyone who uses SAA should basically be able to afford that. And we also miss an opportunity of making it clear that the situation where Eskom is at is not as a result of only people who are not paying their debt to Eskom. It is also because of poor financial management decisions which the management and the governance structures of Eskom previously should take responsibility for. And so when you look into those missed opportunities, you can't but also reflect on the continued social relief of distress grant that could have been asserted as a more sustainable measure of fighting poverty by translating it from this short-term grant into a universal basic income grant, which is not only a consumption item, but it is an item that stimulates consumption at a household level and increase demand in simple economic terms.
And what's happened now is that the temporary relief, has been extended by another year to March of 2024. During that time, that money, based on how the cost of food, cost of living in terms of rent, accommodation, transport, how that is all rising, it's fair to suggest that those people will basically be left with nothing.
What the 350 Rand grant could buy for you at its introduction during COVID can no longer buy you those items now. The cost of living has increased dramatically in South Africa. And those are the cushions that should have been provided by this budget. And some of the cushions for the poorest of the poor that could have come with the budget is the increase in the basket of items that are zero rated in terms of tax, such that those things which are consumed by the beneficiaries of this social relief of distress grant are put into a basket that is tax-free in such a way that you are able to at least buy more of those items that you would consume as a household on a daily basis. And we believe that it is also a missed opportunity that we did not even increase the very same grant that goes to the poorest of the poor. What is essential about this discussion about the poor and this social relief of distress grant is that many people will believe that we are welfarist in our approach. But the essence of it is that the growth of the economy must at the center be about the people. We do not want to grow the economy for the sake of the growth of the economy. The effects and the benefits of the growth of the very same South African economy must find expression on the daily lives of the people. They must be looking forward to listen to the budget. They must be looking forward to benefit from the infrastructure development programs that have been announced. And so at the center of growth, it must be the people. And one of the direct benefits of the people from growth is the trickle effect that finds expression for those who are no longer vulnerable economically, but already marginalized. And this is one of those channels that must benefit those people.
So what happens then in this case? Where can people find hope overall when we're hearing that even growth forecasts have been revised down, times are still going to be tough due to domestic and international factors?
There are other factors that must come in handy to cushion the poorest of the poor. One of those is in the health area. No one should access, or in fact, the quality of the healthcare that a person receives must never depend on whether the person can afford or not. That is one area of making up. Secondly, the access to quality education must never depend on whether you can afford or not. And so those are the areas that, if properly implemented, can make up for the benefit of the poorest of the poor. And over and above that, the implementation of these other programs that have been announced here, with infrastructure getting about 903 billion rand, the very same infrastructure development interventions must provide employment opportunities for the marginalized, the young people, and the vulnerable in rural communities even. There is no reason why a rural road must be taken out on a tender for it to be resurfaced or even established. We must work on building the skills of local people such that they are employed in large numbers as agents of delivery of the very same infrastructure, such that they have a very strong bond with that infrastructure, in a way that when they are angry about not getting water, they do not wake up and ban the other infrastructure, because they shall have been party to the delivery of the very same infrastructure. And so all these other expenditure areas that have been announced, embedded in them must be opportunities for public employment for those who are on the margins of the economy.
And do you worry, I mean, you mentioned just the level of protests in this country. Do you worry that we're going to see a worsening of social unrest in this country as people become poorer, more desperate, more hopeless?
There will be precipitation of more protest and more protest. And this protest I distinguish from political opportunism that comes with electoral periods. That on its own, that we are going towards the 2024 general elections, will have its own people who have their own interests that are going to instigate communities and all of that. But until and unless the genuine plight of the people is attended to in such a way that when we say we invest on water and sanitation infrastructure, practically it must translate into people and households and communities not having to live with sewage that is running down the streets. When we have investments that go into infrastructure, which prioritizes road infrastructure as part of it, people do not have to live with potholes. And the opportunities that come with that are such that people must be taken into confidence and as agents of delivery of the very same program, such that they draw the economic benefits that come with those programs. The investments that are being made on infrastructure, for example, hold a basket of opportunities even for young people who are largely affected by unemployment. Infrastructure development projects can provide workplace experience exposure for young people who qualify from colleges and universities of technology as part of work integrated learning. Infrastructure development programs can provide opportunities of skills development for young people who reside in those communities, such that when you build a road, it's not about building a road of 10 kilometers from point A to point B, but you use infrastructure delivery to address socio-economic imperatives of the very same communities that you are delivering that infrastructure to.
Thulani Tshefuta, good to speak to you. Nedlac Community Constituency, speaking to us today.